Californians, Californians are activists. Maybe Americans are lazy, but Californians are activists. This is what we do. There's some issue, and then we come together and massively protest. So, I mean, we blocked all the freeways so that Trump had to get out of his limousine in a freeway, walk over the middle concrete barrier, and walk across the freeway to get that. We were the only state that did it to him. Other states may protest, may make it a little bit difficult. We shut down the whole damn transportation grid and make him walk like, oh yeah, it's on TV. That's why he hates us, because we were the only people to embarrass the hell out of him. And we're also a donor state. In 2019, we lost $20 billion in 2019 alone. $20 billion is more than it was estimated to permanently end homelessness in the Bay Area forever. The Economist magazine, which is an international relations magazine, said that California possibly has the most democracy of any government in the world other than Switzerland because of the initiative process. That I think for the first time in American history, about 200 years, you have a president saying, I know you guys are hurt in that state, but I'm not sure I want to help because I don't really like you guys. And let's talk about how I can strong arm my politics out of you.
Should California secede from the United States? That's the question Marcus Ruiz Evans is asking his fellow Californians. He founded CalExit, a movement dedicated to building broad-based support for California's independence. On January 23rd, the Secretary of State cleared CalExit to begin collecting signatures on an official ballot proposition. Marcus has until July to collect more than 500,000 signatures. So stay tuned and find out why California is better off left alone.
My name is Marcus Ruiz Evans. I'm the spokesperson and president for CalExitNow.org. That's CalExitNow.org. That's where you can find out more information about the petition. We have recently filed a petition. Actually, we filed it 2.5 months ago. It just happened coincidentally to be released about a week after Donald Trump made his controversial statements about maybe he would deny federal aid to wildfire victims. That seems to have blown up the interest in the petition. We were expecting some reaction. We figured that Trump would be Trump, as we like to say. We figured that he would have executive orders and that would be offensive to people. We had no idea that the Palisades wildfire would happen, that it would be one of the most destructive and heart-wrenching ones there, and the costliest possibly. And we had no idea that I think for the first time in American history, about 200 years, you have a president saying, I know you guys are hurt in that state, but I'm not sure I want to help because I don't really like you guys. And let's talk about how I can strong arm my politics out of you. I'm a big history buff. I can't think of another time in U.S. history that's happened. So we certainly didn't predict that unique event out of the 200 years of American history, and we didn't predict the Palisades wildfire. But those things all sort of meshed together and literally created a perfect storm so that when our initiative came out, I think the media saw it as a way to kind of stick it to Trump. He hurt a lot of people here. He insulted a lot of people here. And so within a week after Trump insulting the people of California, the government of California has the ability to release that initiative. I thought they were going to release it in 4 more weeks. They managed to push it up sooner. Can't go down conspiracy road, but that's their option. So someone in the California government decided to not wait 4 weeks and push it out now so that it came out a week after Trump made those comments. I have no control over that. That exploded it, and it was basically we'd say, oh yeah, Trump, you want to say something to this? Well, then we're going to say something back. And I think a lot of people enjoyed that. And I think people in power in California want that message to be heard. I don't have control over the media sphere. We had no idea it was going to be like this. It's been wildly successful, but it's kind of sad. The initiative itself isn't what is important. What is important is what the initiative does. So the initiative calls for the California government to do an official investigation into secession or if California could survive independently. It's called a Blue Ribbon Panel investigation. The California state government does 1 or 2 of these every year. Early childhood education, daycare centers for elderly, health regulations for women's nail salons up and down the state, stem cell research for autistic children. Anytime they want to do something new, and it could be a little bit legally questionable or complex, they'll do an investigation called a blue ribbon panel investigation. So if we look at women's nail salons, that happened a couple of years ago. They brought in all the business owners, they brought in nail salon experts, they brought in biological experts, they brought in doctors who do disease prevention, they brought in safety and health experts, and they go, okay, here's what's happening. We need to have these new safety guidelines so that there's basically some women were dying from the nail salons, the bacteria, and it wasn't clean, and they got into someone's nail bed and it was exposed and blah, blah, blah. So it wasn't many people, but they wanted that to be stopped permanently. So they did this investigation, and then that panel comes up with recommendations for legislation. The legislators don't have to take that, but this is the normal process. Then the second part will be a vote will be placed on the ballot in the future that says, do you want to leave America, basically? It is a non-legally binding vote, which is how we got it in the initiative process. You can't radically change the California government through the initiative process. So we kind of tooled it to do a poll and force the California government to do an investigation. The key thing here is that any legislator in California can call for a blue ribbon panel investigation on California independence tomorrow. It only takes about 4 or 5 additional legislators to make it pass. If you look at blue ribbon panel investigations, they're typically suggested by one legislator and then 4 or 5 people back it up, and then it's being done. So tomorrow, if people around California called their assembly members or senators and said, I want you to launch an official investigation into this, they could make it happen now. They don't have to wait 6 months to collect the signatures. They don't have to wait an additional 3 years for the process to play out. They could be doing it right now. We're making sure to point that out. We're saying people can walk and chew bubble gum. You can also sign a petition and make a phone call within about 1 minute. It's not that hard to sign your name and address, make a phone call. You can do it in a minute. Here's the tech you needed, a phone and a pin. Everybody has these things. We're pointing that out. The second thing is obviously the vote. Any legislator or the governor can call for a special election. Any legislator can call for a vote on something. So we're saying that too. Sign the petition and then call your assembly members, call your senators, call your governor and say, I don't want to wait for the petition, which I just signed. I want you to do the investigation now, and I want you to put the vote up at the next election now. And I know that you guys have the power to do that. The initiative process is simply our way to force the California legislature to do what we want. It's about those two actions, largely because the marquee example for secession around the world is Scotland. If you talk to historians and people who do international independence movements and plebiscites, etc., like Ryan Griffith and Dr. Matt Kuvertrup, they'll point out that Scotland's the marquee model. Scotland was trying to become independent for 90 years, and it was a laughing stock. It was a joke. Scottish independence was a joke, and it was laughed at. Then this guy came, Alex Salmond. He eventually became the first prime minister of Scotland. He organized the Scottish movement to be more serious, and within 5 years of him doing that, they were having a vote. So 90 years of laughter and being taken a joke, one guy comes in and cleans house, they have a vote within 5 years. Now, when he came in and started cleaning house, one of the first things they did was the Scottish people ordered the Scottish government to do an official investigation of being independent from England for the first time in 500 years. Historians of Scottish independence say you can date the moment Scotland was going to become independent or more independent to the day that report came out. They would not have a vote on independence or devolution for a few more years. There'd be more debates. But all historians say basically that report came out, and you can date Scottish independence struggle pre and post that report. It changed the mind of the Scottish people. It basically exploded their brains. People who were critical of the idea may still be critical, but they couldn't laugh at it. They couldn't act like it's not important. Everybody took the idea seriously, and now everybody was involved in the debate. And within 5 years, they were having a vote to become more devolved from the English government than they had been in half a millennia. So it's a very important document. We think we can have a similar epitome here in California. Those two steps are important because under international law, while they're not legally binding domestically, They're pivotal under international law. So you would have an educated electorate because the government did an investigation. And then that educated electorate did a what's known as an informed vote for independence, which means you get a lot of respect on the world stage. I point everybody to Catalonia, Spain. The Spanish government said, you can't vote to leave. We don't recognize it. Catalonia did it anyways. The entire world recognized them as independent, and they were getting calls from the UN to do direct meetings at the UN. Imagine if we did that here in California. The world's fifth largest economy, government has official investigation into seceding from America. That doesn't mean it's happening. It just means our government held hearings for a year in Sacramento on television talking about we want to secede. I don't know you could put the genie back in the box after that. I think that experience would be so pivotal and catalyzing that we'd have a similar Scottish devolution story here.
So go back to right before the tech issues happened. You were getting into the history of the initiative process with the railroads. I thought that was interesting and that cut out. Could you kind of go back to that? I
Oh
love
yeah,
little history nuggets like that.
I am a huge history buff. So most states don't have the initiative process. It's exceptionally unique amongst all 50 states. I think California, Indiana, maybe one other state has this. We only have it because in 1911, when the railroads were controlling most of the California government, there was a legislator called Hiram Johnson. He said it's not okay for all the politicians in Sacramento to be bought off by the railroads. The people should be able to push laws through if their legislators aren't doing it because they're bought off by corruption. So they passed this initiative process, which basically allows you as a person to put an idea up for a vote, and then it goes directly to the voters. And even if the legislator doesn't like it, it doesn't matter. It still goes directly to the voters. And the voters can vote in this law over the will of the legislators kicking and screaming. Because you got to go back 100 years. All the legislators were bought off by the railroads. They wanted to get laws passed that the railroads wouldn't want to do, so they needed a way to supersede the entire government and inject laws in. It's a highly unique process. The Economist magazine, which is an international relations magazine, said that California possibly has the most democracy of any government in the world other than Switzerland because of the initiative process. We are the most democratic republic of people outside of Switzerland, according to The Economist magazine, looking at governments around the world specifically because of our initiative process. And he meant England, America, France, all of us. We're more democratic than everybody else.
Interesting. I didn't know that. You get a very different
I didn't make that. The
That's
Economist said
interesting.
that.
You
The
get a very
Economist magazine
different
said it.
concept
Yeah.
of what California is like when you turn on, I don't know, Fox News. They make you think that California is some commie hellhole, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And you don't think of them being as the most
Yeah.
democratic, at least from the discourse you get to hear.
Yeah. I know a lot of conservatives, and I've networked with a lot of conservatives around America because we need votes to leave through the legal process, and it's always the same story. Mark, we'll help you expose how Gavin Newsom and those evil Democrats rigged the elections because we know that's the only reason why they get elected and push those crazy laws. And I have to go, guys, you know, if you want to call our officials crazy and the ideas they pursue crazy, that's fine. What you can't do is act like not everybody here is down for it. The majority of the people like those crazy ideas. They pushed our elected officials to do those crazy ideas. Nobody's forcing the laws you see on the people. The people are forcing the legislator and the elected officials to do it. That blew their minds up. They were like, what? This doesn't process. And I'm like, we're not victims. There's no elaborate setup. People actually like this craziness here because that's who we are. You're just going to have to deal with it. I don't think they believe me. I think it's easier for them to comprehend stolen elections and forced laws, and instead of this place is so different from America that our people actually like the
Yeah,
craziness,
there's
you
a little
guys.
bit of a cult action in politics right now, and people just don't want to see anything other than the Kool-Aid they're drinking. Um, what I would like you to get
Yeah.
into why, like the reasons why people want California to secede. I've always heard that California pays more in taxes and it receives back from the federal government. Is that the only reason? Are there more reasons? Are there maybe reasons people don't know about unless you live in California that y'all want to leave America so bad? What's your elevator pitch basically on that?
So we have two elevator pitches. If I talk to you in 2014, if I talk to you in 2016, and if I talk to you in 2024. So we're going fast. If I was to talk to you about CalExit today, I would not need to do that much work. In 2016 and 2020, I had to do a lot of work. I'd have to walk you through a lot. I don't need to do any of that. All I have today is say a few things to you. Number one, did you hear about the Palisades fire? Okay. Did you hear that people are dead and homeless and in poverty and destitute, and that people are ripping their hair out and they are beside themselves with trauma and pain? It's going to be one of the worst experiences Californians have experienced since the Loma Prieta earthquake. Yeah, I have heard about that. That looks horrible. People are suffering. Okay. Did you hear about Donald Trump said, while people are dead, while the ground is smoldering, while people are homeless, while people are destitute, while they're beside themselves in pain and shock, I don't know if I like you guys enough to give you wildfire aid. I might hold it against you. Let's see if you change your politics the way that I like it. He was backed up by Speaker Johnson. So I point out to people there's president, vice president, speaker, three levels of power. Two of the top three most powerful people in the federal government said, oh, California, are people dead and homeless and destitute? And are you in a disaster response like Katrina, New Orleans? Let's play politics. I don't really like you guys, and I'm not sure we're going to help you out. The people of LA heard that and exploded into rage. I am not parsing my words, and I am not exaggerating or being hyperbolic. Sheer white hot rage is the way people in California feel after Trump said that. All I have to do now is remind them of that, and if they're not willing to back CalExit, all I got to do is add one little layer of whipped cream on the dessert. I just remind them about the Los Angeles Times poll that came out last year, or only 6 months ago. 48% of all Republicans in America view Californians as not American. That was a big shock when that came out. It was widely panned here. So you add up that the party in control, who's had more power than they've had in a century, while trifecta governments come and go, you got to go back over 100 years to find where one party owned the House, Senate, presidency, and Supreme Court. They are more powerful than they've been in 100 years, and the Supreme Court is more conservative than it's been in 90 years, according to NPR. That's who California is going to face recently. And in that environment, where they have the votes to vote us out if they want, the top two leaders said, while we're down, while we're hurting, while we're holding on to breath, I'm not sure I want to help you because I'm not sure I like you. Maybe if you do things the way I think you should, I'll help. That's the way a dictatorship runs. That's not the way a democracy runs. People are blown away. I've asked 30 different reporters, and you can just tell it's bad because they won't answer me. They get demure. I go, you're a reporter. You've been around. You tell me what functional country has countrymen telling other countrymen that during the middle of a disaster. So there's an earthquake in Iran, and one city in Iran is devastated. Does the center of Iran go, we really don't like you Iranians over there, so we're not sure we're going to help you guys? I know you have people crumble to the rubble, but I don't know. If the city of Leeds was washed out by a tsunami in England, would London look at them and go, I know you're English and I know you speak the same language, but yeah, we don't really like you. So I know you have bodies washing out and bloated on the seafloor and in the beach. I'm not sure we're going to help. What stable country has that? Name it for me. No one can name one because it doesn't happen in stable countries. So you point that out to people and you point out, why do you think it's a coincidence that last year the Republicans said half of them think you're not Americans, you're not countrymen? And then this year the president and the speaker say, I don't view you as countrymen, basically. This is not a coincidence. They told you how they view themselves. They told you how they think of you, and now they're showing you. We told you this is the country you're tied to in 2016. None of you wanted to hear it. Now you're seeing it. We warned you 8 years ago. Didn't want to hear it. Donald Trump's a fluke. Russia put him in. He's not part of America. He doesn't represent America. Hell no, he doesn't represent America. Russia put him in. He's only a fluke. And we were saying in 2016, I'm sorry, America did pick Trump. No, 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 Mark, you got it wrong. You got it wrong. Hillary won the popular vote. You can't say that. Hillary won the popular vote by the margin of California alone in 2016, which means outside of California, over half of your fellow Americans did vote for Trump. We were saying that in 2016, 2017. Nobody in California wanted to hear that. Nobody. No one. Wouldn't hear it. Hell no. He's going to be gone in a second. We're going to get him in an orange jumpsuit. The federal system's going to stop him. We're going to end Trumpism. It's a fluke. It'll be gone in a second. The Republican Party's going to walk away from him. Everybody's going to quit and leave him. Trumpism's going to die. Okay, well, that was, what, close to 10 years ago? We're at the third time he's ran after an insurrection. He's more popular after an insurrection and the third time that he's ran, and after 2 impeachment trials, and after 5 to 7 separate federal state investigations that would destroy anybody. He's more popular now. So when you tell Californians, what do you think that says it about in America, where you can commit an insurrection, become a career felon, and you're more popular amongst the American people than ever before? Does that sound stable to you? Second question, when you've seen that when we are at our most worst situation, they want to play games with human life? Do you get that they told you, I hate your guts and I don't view you as fellow countrymen last year? They said it right to your face. Time to pull your head out of the sand, because people are dying because you don't want to accept the harsh reality that's there. We could have prepared ahead of time for this. We chose not to. Now people are suffering. Now they're dead. Now they're homeless. Time to wake up, or this will continue to happen. Do we need to go this a second, third time? Like, do we need to have an earthquake and people are dead and a bridge collapses on people, and then the next Barron Trump or Ivanka or J.D. Vance, who's very young and could easily has another 30 years in his political career? Remember, people are only old in politics when you're 50, 60. Vance isn't even old yet. He has 30, 40 years, plus all the other people who are sycophants who are hanging around with Trump. Oh, there's an earthquake. There's people dead. I don't know. Those icky Californians. I don't know if we want to help. That's disgusting. And if none of that pushes someone to the edge, all I got to do is add one more thing. I look them in the eye and I go, tell me about the Republican backlash, where Republicans said, Donald Trump, I liked you, I voted for you, I thought you were the right thing. But when you told fellow Americans, when they're dead, dying, homeless, charred, and destitute, I'm not sure I want to help, that's disgusting. You cannot treat fellow Americans that way. And I wait for a second, maybe 3 to 10. And everybody looks at me and goes, I'm not familiar with that Republican, Mark. Could you tell me? And I go, that's right, because there are none. So this isn't about Trump at all. This is nothing about Trump. This is about what kind of country elects a guy after an insurrection, makes him more popular, and says, oh, did you threaten to withhold aid to Americans when they're their most destitute in a deadly situation over politics? Yeah, that's cool, bro. I'm like, that's disgusting. That is disgusting. They did nothing about it. They pushed back, not at all. It's okay with the Republican Party to treat you literally as foreign scum. And they just showed you that. Are you surprised? This is the group that backed Trump over an insurrection. This is the group who told you 6 months ago, half of them don't view you as American. It's all coming together. It's there for anybody who wants to see it. Let me answer the other one. If we went back to 2016, it would be what kind of country elects Trump. If we went back before that, that's where I would talk about the donor state status. We're still a donor state. We still lose. We don't have gun regulations that we want. Our gun safety regulations are shut down routinely by the Ninth Circuit Federal Court, even though we have the worst mass shootings here. We had a mass shooting in Gilroy where a guy came from Nevada specifically to kill Californians. We made gun safety regulations to prevent that, and the federal court struck it down. So we can't even protect ourselves from that. And we're also a donor state. In 2019, we lost $20 billion in 2019 alone. $20 billion is more than it was estimated to permanently end homelessness in the Bay Area forever. In 5 years, we could have permanently ended homelessness for all LA forever. We don't get to do any of that because we spend that money on 35 states who hate us for who we are.
I was going to ask you, do you think it's going to be hard to get over 500,000 signatures for this petition? But the way you describe it and how angry people are, I don't think that'll be very difficult. You hear 500,000 signatures, and that sounds like a lot of getting any sort of, civic
Yeah.
action from people, because Americans in general are kind of lazy when it comes to holding their government accountable or doing stuff, in my opinion. But you make a really good
Uh,
case, and then you say how mad they are. I don't live there, so I don't know, like, particularly how ticked off they are.
Californians Californians are activists. Maybe Americans are lazy, but Californians are activists. This is what we do. There's some issue, and then we come together and massively protest. So, I mean, this was the only state to shut down the entire transportation grid when Trump came here. Other states may protest, they may like slow down his car. We blocked all the freeways so that Trump had to get out of his limousine in a freeway, walk over the middle concrete barrier, and walk across the freeway to get that. We were the only state that did it to him. Other states may protest, may make it a little bit difficult. We shut down the whole damn transportation grid and make them walk like, oh yeah, it was on TV. That's why he hates us, because we were the only people to embarrass the hell out of him, and we'll do it again.
One thing I want to get to while we still have some time here is, when I was reading about this, I forget what article it was, they brought up the 1869 Supreme Court case, Texas v. White, that says no state can unilaterally
Yep.
secede from the United States. So for someone out there who says this isn't
Mm-hmm.
feasible, this is a joke, if you succeed at getting this passed, you're going to be struck down. What do you have to say to that? What's the next step? This passes.
I want to say, yeah, I want to say thank you for bringing that up, because you're pointing out what we've been pointing out. Lawyers lie. So I no, so lawyers are going on TV and they're saying secession's illegal, period. They're not even aware of Texas versus White. If they do mention Texas versus White, like you did, they'll go, Texas versus White says secession's illegal. That's a lie. Texas versus White says unilateral secession is illegal, and, quote, consent of the states is a legal form to secession. So the fact that that wasn't in that article so that you could mention it is exactly what I'm talking about. There's a lot of legal scholars out there, and they are lying to people. They are not admitting Texas versus White, and they are not admitting consent to the states. And you literally provide an example. I don't mean to pick on you, but this goes on all the time. We've had constitutional scholars out of Berkeley say these guys are lying, and we forced them to back down. That's why we filed the initiative multiple times, because we found that when you get Kamala Harris, Javier Becerra, Kathleen Keeley, and now Rob Bonta, 4 California attorney generals in a row, one of whom ran for president, Kamala Harris recognized that Texas versus White exists and does allow secession through consent of the states in 2015. Her name's literally on the thing allowing us to do the initiative. She also said in 2017, I don't know where it goes, but I certainly understand the sentiment when asked about CalExit. So she said she gets us, and she personally approved the initiative that would allow us to secede, and recognizes that consent to the states is in there in Texas versus White. How come 4 separate California attorney generals can recognize this, but multiple lawyers who talk about CalExit in the news can't? I'm waiting for someone to explain that to me. Why can attorney generals acknowledge this law, but lawyers who pop off on the news and TV can't seem to ever get it right? Still
They're
haven't found
probably
a good
paid
answer.
off. Everything comes back to money, it seems like, in politics.
I can't say that. That's conspiracy avenue. I'll just point out that 4 California attorney generals said this is true, and every lawyer who went on TV and said it was wrong is a liar or ignorant. In which case, why are you listening to them?
True.
If you don't know about case law, you should not be advising
No, you
people
shouldn't.
about the
No.
law. Our legal system's called stare decisis, meaning case law. It's based upon case laws, not I feel strongly about. If you don't know the cases in a court, in a law, you shouldn't be speaking about the law. That's why you go to law school, where 80% of it is teaching you cases that were already decided, or case law. We have lawyers going, I feel strongly it's illegal. Tell me about Texas versus White. What? You're not even familiar with the case related to the thing you're talking about? That is the basics of legal profession in America. This is ridiculous. These people should basically be disbarred. Why are you lying and misinforming people, and you were just damn ignorant on the law itself? Why am I educating you? Why did we have to get David A. Carrillo of the UC Berkeley Constitution Center to say, oh, secession's illegal, and then the very next year go, okay, yeah, I guess Texas versus White is there, and I guess it says consent to the states. Why did he admit that the first time? Why did he backtrack the second year? The dean of the Constitution Center at one of the top law schools in California had to backtrack. Why did that happen? Why didn't he say
Yeah.
the right thing the first time?
Don't want to go down conspiracy avenue, but I just always figure people are paid off.
I don't want to go down
I
conspiracy
wear my
avenue too,
tinfoil
but
hat every day.
you'll see it in the paper. Yeah, it's illegal. You can't do it. Okay, tell me about Texas versus White. Texas what? Oh no, Texas versus White says you can't secede. Tell me about consent of the states. What? Tell me about who decided Texas versus White. It was Selman Chase. Tell me about who personally appointed Selman Chase. President Abraham Lincoln. Tell me about President Abraham Lincoln's first inaugural address, where he admitted that if he was directed by the public to allow states to secede, he would allow it. But, quotes, having received no instructions from the public, he must now do his duty as president. He literally outlined in his first inaugural address, he literally appointed Salmon Chase, and then Salmon Chase literally drafted that same concept from his first inaugural address into Texas versus White. So Salmon Chase and Lincoln on two separate occasions back this interpretation. Good luck trying to get a lawyer to recognize that or know what the hell I'm talking about.
Yeah, when I read that in the article, I'm thinking something doesn't make sense here because A, why would the state of California allow this to go on if it's unconstitutional? That's like their
Yeah,
job, literally, to stop that.
yeah,
And B, why would someone like you or
yep.
people involved want to waste their time on something that's just going to get struck down and not be feasible? So,
Because people aren't reading it. Literally in the release that allowed us to collect signatures, Rob Bonta says Texas versus White exists and allows consent to the states. So did Javier Becerra and so did Kamala Harris. So go ahead and tell Kamala Harris she doesn't know the law. Then tell Javier Becerra he doesn't know the law. And then go tell Rob Bonta, who's in charge, he doesn't know the law too. And then go ahead and tell Kathleen Keenely she doesn't know the law. I look forward to any lawyer in America willing to do that. Do it. Do it publicly. Let's see you do it.
I know there's been several different movements of California trying to get away from the union. Would you maybe describe what makes this one different from it? I know there's the New California movement, the Jefferson movement. There was this one by a guy named Tim Draper I read about where he wanted to split California up. So what
Yeah,
makes CalExit better
yeah.
and different from what has been attempted in the past?
Yeah, so the majority of Californians don't support splitting up California. You'll see this covered in the news by people outside of California who think this is maybe interesting or going to happen. Nobody here backs that. So the Public Policy Institute of California is the official think tank of California. They did two surveys during Tim Draper's two times to split up California, once, and I believe, into 3 states and once into 6. The polling showed 67 to 73% of Californians dead set against breaking up California. Nobody here wants that. Some outside Republicans like that. You can hire signature gatherers and they go, see, Californians want this. Total lie. Nobody here's into it. And they won't mention the PPI surveys. Additionally, you want to talk about Jefferson. Jefferson has to get permission from California in order to leave us. Jefferson massively backed Trump while California was freaking out about him. So they have permanently painted themselves into a corner. You don't insult a group when you need to go ask them for permission to do something. And that's literally what Jefferson did. You will not hear this in the reporting. What you also won't hear is that a majority of Californians are dead set against breaking California up. I literally was interviewed by the Wall Street Journal. He had no idea of the PPIC surveys. And I told him about them and I sent him the reference and I said, everybody's against this. They've done this twice. Nobody backs this. I gave him all the references. He completely cut me from the story and then talked about how Jefferson could pull it off. So there's a little bit about that. Secondly, counties don't exist outside the state. Counties exist because of the state. Counties have no right to go to the federal government and address grievances. So if California leaves, counties can't do anything. I don't care if they're a collection of counties because they literally don't exist in the federal government, so they can't ask for treatment by the federal government because they're a non-entity. Finally, let's go to CalExit. 2016, February 2017, Reuters, Ipsos, and Stanford University, two separate reputable polling institutions. 32% of Californians for immediate secession. Not talk, not wait. They said secession tomorrow, 32%. That's 15.5 million people. Both Reuters, Ipsos, and Stanford found an additional 14.5% of people who were not opposed to talking about secession. When you add that up, it's 47.5% of Californians were willing to discuss secession in February 2017, according to Reuters, Ipsos, and separately Stanford University's Little Hoover Institute. Nobody will print that in the news. Nobody will also print that that's within the margin of error of over half. 3 to 5% is the margin of error for polls. If we're at 47.5, we're within the margin of error that possibly over half of Californians were open to the idea of secession in February 2017. That's wildly beyond anything any idea to split California has ever gotten. So we say Jefferson is unrealistic, splitting California is up, unrealistic, because you only got a third backing it, whereas CalExit has over half potentially. They have no statistics to back them up. That's why we say CalExit's the reasonable option, and everything else you mentioned is basically a flight of fantasy. Nobody wants to hear that. They want to hear the secessionists are the crazy ones. That's why they won't print the facts that I tell them, and they'll lie and go ahead and print the article.
Sounds like mainstream media to me. That's pretty much what they do all the time. Yeah.
I am not saying
I'll
that.
say it.
I'm just telling you the experiences I had. I did an interview with Warner Brothers Music, and it was great. They covered the CalExit move, and they go, "What about water? You secede, and America's going to cut off the Colorado River, and you won't have any water." I spent 40 minutes explaining to them how California has all the water we need. We have a water export problem. 80% of our water goes to ag. 80% of our ag is shipped outside of California. We have more water than we need to water all our people 5 times over, let them have 8-hour-long showers, and grow all the food we need. What we don't have is enough water to feed 90% of the fruits and vegetables to America if the Colorado River's cut off. So I said, look, if America cuts off the Colorado River, we cut off 90% of the fruits and vegetables the entire American population eats. I don't want to do that, but I want to let you know that we have negotiation space. They cut 40 minutes of my speech and just included the comment where I said, therefore, California doesn't have a water problem. They then had a professor do the interview, and they go, "Professor, this guy says California doesn't have a water problem. Is that true?" "No, this guy's crazy and he's nuts." Into the episode. So that's what happens out here. I gotta go. I got 1 minute. I'll let you say last thing, but those are real experiences. I'm not going to go down conspiracy avenue, but that is how the media acts out here. Lawyers lie. People cut 40 minutes of information. They completely cut out the facts, and then they go with the story that they want. Apparently, we know the facts, and this is why it's so difficult to get this out. People go, "Aren't you going to quit? Why are you doing this 12 years later?" Because people keep lying and then saying they won against me in a debate. No, you didn't. Acknowledge the facts and say, even knowing these, I don't want to secede. I'll quit that day. But the reason I and a bunch of other people are here is we're not going to quit because people lied and played a trick. That's not winning a debate, and we're not going to quit for that.
How did you get involved in this movement? Like, what made you want to do? You started. What
the
made you? Like, what ticked you off enough? What was the turning point?
So the Iraq War. Yes, I was in Marin County at my tia's house, aunt. I'm half Mexican, and they said on news, "Oh, America's definitely going to invade Iraq. New poll, 75% of Americans back going into Iraq." So I'm sitting there and I'm a little bit disturbed by that. 5 minutes later, same channel, new poll, 75% of Californians are against the Iraq war. Californians had as opposite an opinion about a pivotal event in society as they possibly could. That's when I knew we were wildly different. Then I read about Pat Morrison, the Pulitzer Prize winning writer, Paul Starobin, who worked for Newsweek as the editor desk, and Professor Abraham Lowenthal, who wrote Global California. And they were saying California should secede and be better as an independent nation. And I took the idea from them.
Do you want to tell people where they can find you on the internet that we get involved?
CalExitNow.org. CalExitNow.org. We love doing interviews. We love doing interviews with women-focused podcasts. So if anybody wants to do that, we love opinionated women. We're Californians. Please invite us on your podcast. Thank you for having us out. We're willing to do interviews. CalExitNow.org. CalExitNow.org. You can email me at marcus.ruiz.evans. That's MARCUS, period, RUIZ, period, EVANS @gmail.com.
Now that you know where we've been, find out where we're going. Tune in to Ladies Love Politics, where you can stay informed without going insane.